Hello and welcome back to JJ Painting. I am JJ and welcome back to Challenge 99, video number 3. Definitely number 3, I'm not confused anymore, I know exactly where we are. As you may remember from our first and second video, we've got all the models to do our battle company, which cost me £99 and 99 pence. Brilliant, it can be done, that's really nice and really exciting. In the second video, what we did is we got a hold of our methylated spirits and we stripped all the paint off the old models. So they went from looking like this to looking like this. Great. So we've got a nice, relatively clean canvas to work from. I know some of them in that picture still look like they got a bit of paint on them. A few of them went back into the bath afterwards. So when you start seeing these models in subsequent videos, hopefully more of the paint will be off of them than necessarily looks like there is here. Okay? Okay, good. So what this video today is, from the title as you can see, test models. Test models for me is something which is really important with everything. It doesn't matter if I'm doing it for myself or for somebody else. I always do test models irrespective of what the colour scheme is going to be, just so that I know what I'm working with and how it's going to look once it's actually on the models. And for the Howling Griffins, they've got quite a difficult colour scheme, as I'm sure you can understand. For a reminder, the reference image for the Howling Griffins is this one here. So red and yellow, and that's quite a bright red and yellow, is difficult under the best of circumstances. I'd say that the yellow is probably a bit harder overall, and yellow as a colour has always been very difficult for most people anyway. I still struggle with yellow. I know a lot of people who've been painting for longer than I have still struggle with it. It's a hard colour, but with the right techniques it can still look pretty good, even with a relatively minimal amount of work. So that's what we're going to be working with today. So the models we'll be using today are going to be a couple of Marines with different variations on the same colour scheme that you see here. And the first one is going to be from a Warhammer TV example video from a few years ago, which I think was done by Duncan Rhodes, which goes with a black background on this model. And then the second one, I can't remember precisely who it was. I think it was possibly Spiky Bits, possibly Mini Wargamer, one of those guys, who did it from a lighter background, but I'm doing it on a Wraithbone undercoat. So we've got two very different undercoats here, one which is black, one which is nearly a bony white colour, just to get a sense of how they're going to look once they're done. And we're going to dive straight into a side-by-side comparison and contrast, and I'm going to paint a few other things on the models just so that we know that what will be the same on both of them, so things like chest eagles, lenses, purity seals, all that good stuff. I'm going to do those as well. Now, I didn't film myself painting these because you don't really want to see me painting the same models twice, and I frankly don't want to sit through that footage twice myself. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be having a look at them both when they're fully painted side by side. But I think what is important is to see the end result, just so we get a sense of what these two colour schemes, which is designed to look like this, look like when you change the base coat. So without further ado, let's have a look at them. So we're going to start with the one with the black undercoat, and for this one I'll give you my list of colours here as well. So we started off for the yellow base, Avalan Sunset, and for the red, Mephiston Red. Both sides were then shaded with Adrax Earthshade, before a highlight of Evil Sun Scarlet and Uriel Yellow. So those lists of paints should be right there now, as you can see. Brilliant. And the end result is this. Okay, so what we can see straight away from looking at this model is that it is very dark colours. I'm actually kind of a fan of the red a little bit. I do like a dark red, but I like dark red in general. And I can say right now from painting it, it was easier to do the red than it was to do the yellow. The yellow was a couple of very thin coats over the black because it kept showing through, as I'm sure you can understand. But the other thing is that I very much felt like I was working against the base coat. I didn't feel like the base coat was contributing to the yellow looking particularly nice or particularly bright or particularly consistent. But as a result, the dark yellow itself also looks quite sandy under certain lights. It doesn't look as interesting as the red does, in my opinion. Now, that's not to say that it was impossible to do. It was quite time-consuming still, but there's going to be 100 of these models, and I don't particularly want to get bogged down painting the base coat of the yellow on every model forever, because if I get tired, I'll start to make mistakes, and I want to avoid that as much as possible. So I do like it overall, to be honest with you. I think the highlights are a bit rushed, so they don't look great. I will appreciate that. I do appreciate that, and that's fine at this stage. Let's just get a sense of what they look like. I do think the highlights on the yellow do save it a little bit, and the highlights on the red also look okay. And overall, this model I can give a pass, but at the same time, I'm not married to it. So for the lighter one, on the other hand, which started on a Wraithbone base, for this one I will be using some of the same colours, most of the same colours in fact, but I'll be using them at the next step up. So Wraithbone is nice and light, as you can see, but the colours I used for this model are Evil Sun Scarlet for the red, Uriel Yellow for the yellow, obviously, as the base. Then an Agrax Earthshade wash over in the recesses. And then to highlight the red, I used Wild Rider Red. And then for the yellow, I used Flash Gitz Yellow. Cool, so we started with this, and the end result was this. Alright, so straight away, as a colour scheme, I much prefer this one already. I think the colours pop a lot more than they did on the first one. I think the yellow's a lot bolder, the red's a lot more interesting to look at, and overall I think this one was a much better choice, to be honest with you. The two things I will say that I didn't really like is the choice of Wild Rider Red for a highlight. I think it doesn't really do anything. I think Fire Dragon Bright, possibly Troll Slayer Orange would be a better choice as a highlight than this, because the Wild Rider Red just doesn't do it for me. I think it washes the red a little bit out and doesn't make it look quite as interesting overall, or quite as prominent. The yellow was much easier to paint as well, getting onto that. This was a far more straightforward thing to paint. And the other thing I'll say about this is the Agrax Earthshade was a big difference here. It felt like I was shading things down to make it look, the brighter parts look more interesting and to pop more. Whereas for the darker one, when I was using the Agrax Earthshade, that very much felt like I was just darkening an already very dark colour palette, and I didn't really like doing that at all, to be honest with you. So having now worked with both of these models on the colour scheme, I need to decide which one I want to do for the whole company. And I think it's a bit of a open and closed case in this one. I'm definitely going to stick with the Wraithbone colour scheme for the whole company. It was easier, I think they look better, I'm happier painting it, and I honestly think that I can do more with it in this respect than I can with the dark one. The dark one I did find a bit frustrating, and it took a little while to actually get the model the way I wanted it to look, because it is so dark, and whilst there are things about it I like, overall I just didn't feel satisfied walking away from it going on to the next one. With the Wraithbone one, far more satisfied, far happier with it overall as a colour scheme, so that's the one I think I'm going to go with. So, the next step, what's happening next? Well, here's the thing about this, is that as you can see, I didn't paint the whole model, but I did give an idea of what certain things are going to look like. So as you can see, Chest Eagles will probably remain a darker metal, and the bolt guns, which I did paint as well, but I didn't attach to the models, are probably going to keep the black casing, and I'm going to do that with some of the heavy weapons where I can as well. I think because the armour is so bright, having those darker colours to contrast, so darkened down purity seals, darkened down weapons, are going to be really vital and really important just to give the model a slightly more even and balanced colour palette overall. I don't really want to be stuck in the loop where I've got lots of really bright things across the entire army which are going to be leaving you feeling a bit crazy just looking at it. I don't want to do that. I'm sure you don't want to look at it. So I think having those dark bits are going to really help this thing come together a lot more as well. So with all of that said, what is the next steps? Now, the controversial thing is here, these are the only two models that have actually been built and sprayed since I last updated you guys. By the time you see this, there's probably a bit more, because I will have done some more work on them in preparation for the new videos. You know, I like to stay ahead. I like you guys to feel involved, but I don't want to leave you guys feeling disappointed. You know, I kept you waiting for so long, when we were doing this the first time around. I don't want you to feel like I'm letting you down again. I wouldn't do that to you. You matter too much to me. What will be happening next is I will be building the company, so we're going to have 2 more videos where I show you the construction process behind each of the 2 demi companies. This is firstly so you know that I'm not cheating and taking stuff out of my bits box, and also so that you can see a bit of a before and after, how they are now, and what they'll look like once they're fully built. After that, I'll probably be doing a couple of short videos over as time goes by with updates in terms of how much of the company I've painted, and we're going to be doing a video about the captain, because let's not forget he looks like this. So I've got an idea for what I want to do with him, but I want you guys to see the process behind it, because if anyone remembers this model, it's not exactly the most convertible model in people's minds, but I've worked with this model for quite some time, so I have a very good idea of what I can do with this model, but that's for another video. For now, I hope you enjoyed this content. I hope you're excited to see more Howling Griffins coming along, and as this company grows and grows, hopefully we'll grow a little bit with it. So thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, share below. So thank you so much for watching, goodbye, and have a lovely day.